So, freshly out of the ice caverns, we step into the Gate of the Ancients.
I can barely read this. It says, the center is the key.
Well, let's try to keep that in mind then. Once again, it's the Sharga background, and this time this level doesn't even have the excuse of having been built or dug out by the Shargas. They just couldn't stop using this background, I guess. Oh! The Gate of the Ancients is chock full of traps, but the confusing thing is that there's also a lot of fake-out traps around. You'll see those when we get around to them. First, let's extinguish this campfire using the Ice Bolts rune.
The darkness comes. This rune brings it to those that tamper. Be afraid to be alone in the dark.
And it has the Scare rune on it, which is a rune I already had. I'm afraid I'm not going to have a chance to show it in action, because there's not going to be any more enemies which it actually works on. In these piles of dirt, we find arrows, but a different kind of arrow. These go into the magical arrow quiver that the skeleton in the entrance to the Temple of Froggy dropped. Finally! And they are Black Slayer arrows, actually one of the best weapons in the entire game.
What was that?
I'm only going to find a few of these arrows. They are exceptionally rare. And that click plate did not actually do anything at all. It's just one of many fake outs in this level. Designed to keep you sort of paranoid. Same as the music for this level, which is also supposed to make you sort of nervous. Since I'm gonna have to do a lot of walking around in this level,
I can't read it.
I'm gonna cast a silence rune on my party and keep that refreshed whenever it runs out. Lets you listen to the music and makes it a lot less annoying than having to listen to the footsteps all the time. In this little alcove we find a broken rune caster and some red feathers. I guess these bones belong to a frog shaman who died here. And a ring of poison resistance. Don't really need it, but we'll bring it along anyway.
The scroll is intensely cold. There's some sort of magic running through it.
I have heard of such magics. They were common before the devastation.
Oh, that sounds promising. Let's have a read.
There's only this strange rune.
Here's a rune you simply have to try out to see what it does. It's not as spectacular as you might think. I'll get a chance to show off what it does in a later level. For now, let's keep moving silently through these halls. The Gate of the Ancients is a complex level. It consists of 2 floors, the Gate of the Ancients and the pits below it. And I'm gonna have to travel back and forth quite a few times to complete the level. Here's where Enigma's lore skill comes in handy.
There is great magic in the center of the location.
He's capable of actually reading a lot of these signs.
In the center, there is great magic waiting for those that are patient.
Though if you use the language rune, Drake can manage quite well by himself. But Enigma sometimes provides a different insight into things. So I'll be casting and removing the language rune a few times here, so you'll get both readings of the signs. Several people have commented on the fact that I almost never have to check my map in this game and seem to kind of know by instinct where I'm supposed to go. The thing is that I've played through this game so many times, I do almost know the maps by heart. But it does help that I extensively play each level before I actually start recording. Here's a click plate that actually does something. It starts this spear fence opening and closing. On the ground we find another very sharp dagger like the one we found in the very first room of the game. And this is a very interesting potion. The game calls this bubbling blue potion, and the strategy guide for some reason calls it a life restoration potion. What it actually does is add 1 point to whichever stat you currently have lowest. And in my case that's agility, because for some reason that hasn't raised from its 3 stars since the second level of the game. I think I ran into some kind of nasty bug in this playthrough. Maybe caused by my using more potions and mushrooms than I usually do, because it really doesn't make any sense that agility hasn't raised any more since then. Oh well, at least this potion can now help me balance Drake's stats out.
There stands a guardian at the gate. Beware him.
Beware the guardian at the gate.
So, careful of the Guardian. Sounds menacing. A lot of long, featureless corridors in this level. And yet another door that won't open until I find the correct key. Not a very big fan of this level, and I think for an LP it's probably the worst level you could come across. Very little actually happening in it, lots of walking necessary. And of course I could use some fade-overs to cut that out, but then you'd have absolutely no idea where I'm going. The door that I just tried doesn't actually open from this side, you can only open it from the other side. Same goes for this door. So I have to get on the other side of that first. A little bit more exploring, but we end at another dead end with some useless junk in it. Never mind. Let's turn around.
I still can't make out what it says.
Whenever Drake says this, or Enigma says, "I'm sorry Drake, it is impossible to read," that means that sign really is impossible to read. It's another way in which the designers of this level try to make you paranoid, and making you think you are missing out on something. There are several of these unreadable signs throughout the level, and I have to say they annoy me more than they make me paranoid. Stinger note in the background music to creep you out. Back north we go. Now let's turn left here because there is actually an illusionary wall. I miss when Farley would say, "Lo, there is something wrong with the north wall." Anyway, we have a mana circle here. Not bad. And a pit to drop down into. Well, no sense avoiding it. Oh, I could have used the Featherfall rune there, I guess. But there's a health potion at the bottom, and some bones of an unfortunate other guy who fell into this. Now we are actually in the pits, the floor below the Gate of the Ancients. So let's not bother with that then. There's several pits, obviously, in the Gate of the Ancients that lead into this level, and there's several ladders leading right out of them again. Basically, this level is one big game of snakes and ladders. But things are gonna get quite a bit more interesting than that, luckily. Here's a pressure plate with a hole above it. Nothing happens when you step onto it. You need a little bit more force to press this plate down. In other words, we're gonna have to drop down from above. And the end just leads to a dead end, so let's roll back and climb up that ladder we found earlier. Man, without the footsteps, this is almost relaxing. Here we are. New area. We have a pit over here. And we have a second pit over here. And a third pit in the final arm. This is kind of an important set of connections to the pits below. So you really have to work into your memory which pit drops into which area below. Here we dropped into the pressure plate I mentioned earlier, with enough force to actually press it down. And it opened up a new corridor, which leads into another mana circle. And what have we here? The next orb, Srini's orb. And this one has a very unique power, which we're going to be using quite a lot in this level. But first let's check out these signs.
In the shadow realm, there lies a weapon.
Sounds good to me. Well, that doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense. Let's see if Drake can make more sense of that.
The scourge has been banished to the shadows.
Sounds sinister.
In the realm of shadows, the weapon is hidden.
Alright. Let's see, we have a hole in the ceiling here. So Srini's orb, use it on your party, and you rise up. It also acts as a permanent featherfall rune when it's in your inventory. So from now on I will no longer take fall damage, which is also very welcome. I've already been around here, I think. Yeah, there's the sound of the spear fence. Alright. We're gonna head south for a bit. Let's see. A very long corridor over here. And this leads back towards the start of the level, so let's turn around and explore some of these side passages. Switch in the wall opens up a corridor behind me, and another switch opens up a corridor over here.
Transfer portal selection device. Enigma. Do you know what that means?
No, but the ancients had many wondrous entrances of magic.
Who the ancients actually are is never really explained. Whether they're ancient humans or some other race, I don't know. Anyway, pulling this lever has a fairly pointless effect. There's two very long corridors in this level, and they both have a mechanism which causes you to constantly get teleported one square back. What it effectively means is that it looks as if you're walking down the corridor, but in fact you're actually constantly getting teleported backwards, which makes it seem like you're walking down an infinite corridor. And pulling the lever switches that effect from one corridor to the next one. It's not really a necessary thing to do in order to complete the level. Don't want to go down that ladder. I'm going to drop down this hole. What have we here?
Those who are greedy will close all doors.
Oh goody. 3 doors. And if you don't open them in the correct order, then they will all lock and you will have to unlock them somewhere else. First, the middle one. This yields a key in the shape of a blue wolf. Well, there were 2 locked doors upstairs, so no doubt I'll have to use it up there. Second door on the right, which has another magical shield like the one I got in the Dwarven Fortress. And the third one just has another ring of poison resistance. Not very interesting. Basically, you really do want the key, and now all the doors are locked. I could fly up this hole, but there's also a switch in the wall which opens the corridor behind me. Unfortunately, the wall closes again behind you. Before we go up that ladder, let's have a look what's further down the corridor. Here we have another pair of switches, which opens compartments in the walls on both sides. And a switch which very oddly heals your entire party. Switch over here has an even weirder effect. It cures your party of poison and weakness. Even though we're at least 3 levels removed from the last level where you actually could get poisoned. And it would have worn off before you got here. The only reason I know it cures poison and weakness is because the strategy guide told me. Yeah, anyway, some bones at the end here. Nothing very interesting, and another hole I could potentially fly up. Let's have a look, see where that leads. Crushed bones, that might mean I've already been here. Yep, it's one of those 3 pits. Well, that leaves just one. This one. Alrighty. Nothing interesting here yet. And here we have the remains of another unfortunate adventurer. Nothing too interesting, but he did drop a nifty warhammer, which we saw the first time in the bonus video for the Dwarven Fortress. This is one of the best weapons in the game, certainly one of the best hammers, barring perhaps the stone hammer that was in the hands of the statue of Froggy. Let's just store it in case we come across another companion who's good at using hammers. Alright. Let's keep going.
Do not enter without. I'm sorry. I cannot read it.
Well, maybe the language rune will help Drake decipher the rest of it.
Do not pass this way unless you have the means to rise above your station.
Interesting. I certainly do have the means to rise above my station, the Orbis of Srini, but I'm not quite done in this level yet, and that's gonna lead me towards the exit. So let's head towards this door instead. And climb the ladder back up. Let's see, 2 pits to drop down. I'm gonna start with the left one.